Hello guys, welcome back. I'm your friend InsXO. I do not like this layout. I was more like this layout. It's more playable for us. We can have a greater view on our games. For some reason, I do not want to call this scene a game. Actually, it's a playground for me. It's not a game. It was not intended to be made as a game. It's an art piece. For the last video, we just talked about how can we increase this cube infinitely, but it's kind of boring. Can we make it more funny? Can we do that? By looking at the code, I even found that we could be able to move those cubes. As you can see, yes, we could move that cube, but it's only for that one. Not so good, not so funny. So here's the case. First, let me create a new folder. For this case, I'm gonna call it scripts, because that's what all those people do. They just want to let their project be manageable. So they will create a lot of different folders to be able to put different files or objects into that folder, so it can so it gives people a feeling that everything was ordered correctly. That's what we are going to do. I'm going to put this hi script into the scripts folder, and to be honest, we should give it a name. Otherwise, if we get many different scripts in the future, that could be a mess. We won't be able to know which script should be put into which object. We wouldn't know that unless we give them a nice name to distinguish it from other scripts. So here we basically have, let's say, 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes. We get 3 cubes. That's weird. Oh, I got it. The first cube here, we shouldn't call it cube. Instead, we should rename it to something else. For example, we should say it's a ground. And to be honest, yes, it is the ground. And for the second small cube, I would doubt that whether we should call it a small cube, because there only got 1 cube. Where's that small word comes from? We should just call it a cube. And for the third one, we probably do not need it, so I'll just delete it. So here we only got 1 cube. But wait a minute. For this script, what it does is to listen to the keyboard input. If we press the space key on our keyboard, it will instantiate a prefab from here. But the problem is, if we get so many different cubes listen to the same input, what will happen? The cube will increase in a dramatically way, in a crazy way, and that's something that we do not want to happen. Want it to happen. That's why we need to remove this code block into a center manager. For example, here I'm going to create an empty object. And for this object, I'm going to call it the manager. What does the manager do? The task for manager is to control the whole game, or for this case, is to control the whole world of us. And for this project, for this game manager, we should put this script into it. So I'll just create a new script and give it a name. I'm going to call it manager script, and it should be a component of the manager object. So for the manager script, what kind of code we should give to it. This code. Whenever we press the space key, it duplicates an object, something like this. Yeah, I'm going to drag this cube into a prefab of the manager script. Now, if we run the scheme, when we press the space key, it will indeed duplicate a cube. But the problem is, I cannot see the cubes. The problem is, at the beginning, we should have a private variable. And I'm going to call it vector3. For this variable, this should be the start position of a cube. And for that position, it should be equal to prefab.transfer that's position. And for each time, we will initialize a cube based on the, let's say, start position of a cube times the I. Okay, for this case, we run our game again. And when we press the space button, everything goes fine, just as we expected. And here's a funny thing, is that if we press the direction key on our keyboard, you will see the whole project, I mean every cubes in that stack would also be moving. So this is very nice. At least we could see some movements like this. Here's the problem. I do not like the camera view for now. I just want to, replace it for a little bit so we could see the whole picture. Alright, nice. Now we got a better view on those cubes. We could move around and see it's like this. Okay, a little bit cool, but not so cool. We still need to do something to make it more attractive. There has one thing to notice, that is that in the React in the Unity, you'd better not use the relan here directly, because if you change the len, you won't be able to use it again. It will arrest you an error. So a better way for doing it is to create a new script. For example, I'm going to call it moving a cube. And what I want to do is copy the old code from the old script file into the new script. Delete the old one and put the new script into the object that we want it to be. Okay, for now, since we have said that we want to have more fun with the Unity, how do we do that? Well, we do this. Since here, if we duplicate those cubes, we'll get a list of cubes. The problem is, how can we get a list of cubes? From an old post of my blog, I found that if we want to get a list of objects, we could use a function called find objects of type with enemy with a length. The enemy should be something, but what's that? I don't know. It can be probably a tag. So a tag is right in here. We should add a new tag. We add it here. We give it a length. For example, I'm going to call it cube or cube tag. Okay, after that we go back to the cube. Here I'm gonna add the cube tag to our cube. So now our cube has a tag. If we run this scheme and we create multiple cubes, and for each cube it will have a tag called cube tag, and for other objects it has no tags. I don't know if it's working, but we're going to find it out. So in here, moving a cube, what I'm gonna say is for each input. No. Yes, for each input. Okay, that's still quite unclear about the input. Alright, I guess it's quite simple. We just have to do this. We say if the forward input does not equal to 0, that means it has some inputs. Otherwise, if it's equal to 0, it has no inputs at all. The same thing, we say if the horizontal input doesn't equal to 0, we do something. And the problem is, we do what? Let's say we do not want to find the enemy. We want to find the cube tag. Let's say if we can get the length out from this scene. Okay, we do not put the stuff in here. We put the stuff into here, and we want to print it out. How can we do that? Unity print to console. Okay, we could use the debug log to do the stuff. We get an error. The type or namespace cube tag could not be found. That's weird. The enemy can't be found. Then how about we just say a cube? We still got an error. A cube could not be found. Start wondering if the length for that can be the length of a script. Oh my god, it's really the script. Here you can, as you can see, I just replaced the length to moving a cube. Well, moving the cube is exactly the length of a script, and this script was attached into this object here, as you can see, moving a cube script. I don't know if it's working. Now I'm gonna run it, and if I press the space button from the console, we could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's working. It's counting all those cubes. It's in the counting of all those cubes. The problem here is that I just want to get a list of objects, and I don't know which type that could be. So I just use the variable keyword here, and I'm gonna call it cubes. So we get a list of cube, or we call it cube list. For this one, we just want to get one of them by doing a read-in selection. Here's how can we do it. We use a function called readin.range from 0 to the cube list dot length. If we get such a scene, we get a readin index, and then we get that cube that we want. We say the cube equal to cube list with that readin index. Now we probably could say cube dot transfer and the following. I don't know if it's working. Now I'm gonna go back to Unity and try to run it, and we got an error. Moving a cube list does not contain a definition for length. That's weird. It doesn't have a variable called length. How about count? Okay, it doesn't have an attribute called count, but it should have an attribute called length. That should be right. Here we go. We run this script again, and now we should say we can get a few cubes. And if we move around, here, as you can see, when we move around, the cube selection is actually quite readin. That's cool. That's exactly what I want. So here's a little bit problem about this. I cannot say the auto completion for this list. That could be a problem. So let's go back to the Unity and go to the preferences. Go to the external tools, and if we select the visual code and we select all those selections and regenerate project files. Now we should be able to get everything right by reopening the Visual Code. Now let's try it again. We say cube last dot. Yay! Now we could say all those functions that we could be able to use. That's awesome. Then what we do is let's just copy all those codes right there. And here I'm gonna say cube equal to transfer and so on. Now if we back to our game, we duplicate all those cubes and we move around. As you can see, the cube will start to let's say become a little bit interesting. The only problem is that for now we only got a few cubes. I guess it's not that impressive for now. But if we duplicate it for multiple times in the horizontal way, or let's say in the Z and X plane, if we expand our cubes in the X and Z plane, that could be quite impressive. The problem is, how can we do that? How about we just do another initialization here, and instead of going up along, I just want it to go horizontal. Yeah, we probably could do it by defining a new vector, and for this vector it should has a few parameters, for example the X, Y, and Z. Yeah, as I said before, I just want this cube to expand in the X and Z direction. So I'll just set the Y unchanged. How can we do that? Yeah, we could probably times the X and times the Z, but keep the Y axis stay at the same. And for now, if we press the space button, well, I can still only see the up one. That's weird. You know what? I'm gonna do some experiments. For now, if I increase the X or decrease the X, you would say the cube moves in the X direction. Now if we move this cube in the Y direction, as you can see, it starts to go up or go down. And if we move this stuff into the Z direction, you would say the cube will also move in the XZ plane. For now, I think what I did is definitely correct. I do not think that I did anything wrong with this script. It should be right. I'm increasing the X and the Z, while keep the Y in a constant as a constant value. Weird. How about we just keep the Z and Y as a constant and increase the X? Still nothing happened. I still I start to get one thing. That is, in this command, what we are really doing is increase the Y, double the Y. And because the Y has already got a value, so whenever we times it with an integer, it will go up. But for the X and Z axis, at the beginning, the initial value is 0, so no matter what kind of number we give it to make a duplication, to make a multiplication, it will still be 0. 0 times anything will still equal to 0. So for this case, we will try to create a variable called distance, and at the beginning, I'll just set it to 0, but it should be something else. Let's say it should be the distance should be the start position dot y. Oh, maybe it should be a float. Okay. For now, I will leave the above command there, but I'll just do something like this: plus I times the distance, and also I do the same thing for the z plus I times the distance. Okay, for now, if we go back to the game and we press the space button, as you can see, we got a cube right in here, and if we press it again, we get another cube. That's awesome. Now we got some kind of interesting graph with one cube lag in here. I don't know why. Okay, maybe the I should be 1 at the beginning. Now if we press the space key again, we could say something like this. It's amazing. For now, what we need is another make instance function, I guess. Let me just do this. Okay, we just have to do a duplicate about this function or about this command. And what we want to do is to, let's say, we just want to, I'm going to change the sign of the plus to subtract, from the plus to subtract. Okay, now if we run this game again, we will get something like this. I would say it's quite strange. I never expected this to be happening. So let's make some changes here. Here we go. If we press the space key again, we will get something like this. But it's not quite intuitive. As I said before, the cube corner are too similar with ground corner. So we need to somehow change the cube corner for a little bit. And from my experience, it should be, let's say we should create a material, and I'm going to call it a corner of a cube. From there, we should be able to choose a corner. I'll choose the red because it's okay. Here we go. Now we got a red corner for this material, and what we are going to do is drag it onto our cube. So now our cube becomes red. That's great. Now if we duplicate the cubes, you would say very, very clear that we have something like this. And the most interesting part about it is that if now we press the direction key on our keyboard, you would say the cube just goes crazily, like it never did before. Okay, that's cool. From the very beginning, my initial thoughts on it is that I just want to create a matrix of cubes, and we move it like something like this. But in the end, somehow I start to create something like this. Let me just run it again so we can refill the feeling of creativity. Great. Yeah, still, I'm still not quite satisfied for that. Yeah, what can we do about it? What can we do to make it better? How about we just increase this command for more times? Let's say. Okay. For now, if we press the space key again, you will see something like this. It looks more interesting. Now if we press the direction key, you'll see more cubes moving in the space, in our space. That's awesome. Okay, this is a final shot of our game today. I will create more interesting graph and creativity arts in the future, and I hope you enjoy it. That's it. I will see you in the next video. Bye.